Order.
Yeah, so
So we're recording.
Put on the Facebook order.
yeah. So I think she's hit record, so I think we're good to go.
Well, welcome everybody to this meeting of the Regional Transport Committee. Might be the last of the year, may not be. But welcome, all those present. Any apologies, I've got a few Neil back from James Cagle, Wayne Costello, Paddy Blanchfield, Phil Grafton, and Tanya Gibson. Is there any others?
I'll move those. No, I don't know any else.
Happy to second.
No, Peter. Second and Riley. All those in favour?
No,
That's carried.
Is Ian on board now?
Oh,
that's good.
welcome, Ian.
Thank you. Good morning.
Just missed the introduction, so you haven't missed anything? All good. Any matters arising to and correct record of the first lot of minutes we'll do is in chronological order. We'll go back to July. 1st of July.
So through the chair, there was a correction of those who were present, who was in attendance, and a few other spelling mistakes. So there's been a new one circulated this morning, and I'm happy to move that they're a true and correct record.
I'll second that. All those in favour?
No,
Any matters arising from those? Move on to the second lot. These are the Wednesday, October the 30th last year. True and correct.
Happy to move that.
Riley, seconded.
Second, they were true.
Peter Herrick, all those in favour?
Right.
Against, carried. Any matters arising? No,
No.
you had a late item for today, Peter.
Yeah, it was a late item. If you would accept it, Mr. Chair, it's from Murray Hay from the Naihiri Community Board, and they are just have written to the council requesting, it was actually late, but requesting on behalf of the Naihiri community that the West Coast Regional Transport Committee please lobby on their behalf to have the speed limit lowered through Naihiri. This would bring it in line with other West Coast rural towns. Currently, that speed limit sits at 80 k's an hour through the township, and the community board's been rebooted recently, and they've got a lot of things happening that's adjacent to a children's playground, tennis courts, the fire station, and they're concerned about that speed limit there. So they've got this paper here, but it's quite a busy area through there. But I guess we could ask Max what the procedure is, because I think there's been the government have held that process up at the moment.
yeah. So currently, for you, Chair, currently the NZTA are working on their reversals of the previous changes. So I don't believe they would have lost capacity right now to start reviewing further changes. But one thing that I could potentially suggest is that representatives from the district councils start to collate the different areas which could be worth reducing, and then I could put that in a letter for the sign off from the Regional Transport Committee members further down the line by email, and then we could send that to NZTA, and that will basically be on their books for consideration in the future, if that's agreeable. That's one solution we could potentially follow.
Yeah, speaking from a resident, as a resident of a small community too, we've been doing that at Rapahari for the last several years, good 5 years. We tried to get ours dropped too, so a work in progress. And our one, unlike a lot of others, we've had several fatalities. Bloke introduced to Rapahari over the years. Councillor Haddock was first on the spot in one fatality. You had to see the victim. So that wasn't that too long ago. And there's been a couple in recent times. And curiously enough, all strangers, all not locals, not familiar with the speeds or the signs we believe are in the wrong positions. But we'll cross that one when we collate it with what you're suggesting. I think it's a good thing to pursue. It's not just a matter of raising speed, it's It's looking at signage too. I think that's some of the issues we've got, especially with overseas and people from Hawaii.
All right, and I'm happy to, through you, Chair, I'm happy to make that fit in with the new classification requirements that were released in the last sort of 9 months.
Yeah. Will the letter go to the district council? So, what they recommend?
So through you, Chair, what I was thinking is that the district councils could send effectively just an initial list to me, and then I could collate them all, review each one based on the road type, make the potential reductions fit with the new classification system, and then send it out to the Regional Transport Committee members for approval, and then sending it off to NZTA.
Thank you.
Through the chair, that's proper procedure.
Yeah.
Councillor Gibson, we'll make that an action that copy goes to the Grey District Council.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, Pete, so we knew what.
But I think if there is any, and Ian may wish to speak to this, if there is, there's been quite a few disparities this committee has spoken about for some years through our region on the different local councils too. For example, you've got through Rananga 50k an hour, yet we've just outside our council here, we've got 80k's through a busy school right through Parai, quite heavily populated area, which is growing all the time. So we've got these disparities right throughout. And Councillor Burden just sort of mentioned earlier on when we were talking about Kamara Junction's another one, which is really quite dangerous there. But anyway, I think, Ian, if the councils all put forward some of those things, those areas for consideration in the future, you may wish to speak of the process.
I think through the chair, I think that's a good process. So I think do that, and then we can respond to that and go from there.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ian.
Cool.
Righto, we'll move on to the agenda items. 7.1, page 14, Max.
So
News story.
clearly,
Yeah.
so through you, Chair, so staff have been working on the switch over to the new digital swipe card system, and there's a lot of moving parts, but it's been tracking quite well. We've only got one final operational issue which we have to overcome, which we're hoping to solve this week, and then we'll be ready to hit go on getting the cards sorted, and then they'll be printed and coming shipped over to New Zealand, and then we'll be starting testing. So it's really exciting, and full credit to Kai for she's been picked us up since November, and she's been doing an absolutely stellar job. So it's been a lot, but I'm feeling really positive about getting us sorted on this. So yes, is there any questions?
No, it's been a real credit to all those involved to get this through. It's certainly, it's not a glacial progress. It's been real fast. And I'm so pleased with it. And so are those people that submit us. This is an important issue for them. None of us really know, unless we're in their shoes, how much of an issue it is.
Yeah. And
I think when you look at the paper and you look at the mass, it's pretty cost neutral. The one-off one, it's no great expenditure, but it's a great improvement from the system of the caveman days. We're well past that, and we're caught up with the rest of the country, so that's brilliant.
Mm.
And I just hope the wider public appreciate how the work that's gone into this and how quick it's been come to fruition. It's been brilliant, so all credit to everyone. Well done.
I actually read this myself. I read the report, and I was really surprised there was up to 1,000 users. That's a lot more than I expected. So it's a great thing, I think.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of comments on this. The trend across New Zealand as the population ages is that the trend is for more users.
Yeah.
As our population ages. And so the costs, and demands on the scheme right across the country are increasing.
Yeah, just a small area we are. I didn't think it'd be that high.
So that's my comment there. Just a couple of things, Max, if you could just tell the committee. two things. How have you identified who are the current users to issue the cards to? And the second issue is, could you just give us a little bit more information to the committee on the pilot or the testing you're going to do before we fully roll out?
Okay, so I'll do my best, but Karen, I'll step in with one or two operational points. So in terms of the current database, it was very, very out of date. So Kai went through and reviewed it, and we also sent out some letters to everyone that was on it, and then they would respond saying, yes, I'm still on this, or no, sadly, this person's passed, or whatever else it might be. So we've had a big cleanup of the database. And then in terms of the testing, so the card company sends out some dummy cards, and then they run a test in each of the test companies to make sure that the cards communicate with the machines, which communicate with the database, the back end, which communicates with us. So that's how it's, I think the testing runs for 6 weeks, doesn't it, Cara? Yeah, cool. Does that?
Yeah, no, that's very good. So the procedure in other regions that have been operating card systems for a long time is you get issued a total mobility card, and you've got your proper approvals to obtain that card through your doctor and other foundations like Blind Foundation, etc. You tap the card on the reader, that registers your total mobility. You then complete your trip. And then because you've already tapped the total mobility card, what happens is the machine then calculates the discount, and so you're only invoiced for the is it a quarter or half of the trip costs because of the total mobility scheme. But then in the back end, the remainder of the cost that's subsidised then goes off into a system that then enables that subsidy to be claimed from NZTA as well as our contribution to it. And that's all done on the machine.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be a game changer because the paper chips were a deeply flawed system. Let's put it that way.
I refer to it as the abacus system.
Yeah, it's not far off. Yes. No, it's really, really exciting. So.
A couple of years ago, I was on an accessibility or disability group in Greymouth, and that was one of their biggest worries was getting around the place.
Well, I think,
They'll be chuffed.
I think it emphasised the importance of this because the coast hasn't got any public transport as such. We haven't got the orbital bus or the Christchurch buses where you can just hop on and go where you want. This is it fills a gap, for door-to-door people.
Yes.
And it's very important.
Even visiting friends, I read, it covers the whole field.
Yeah.
It's good.
Right, it's quite practical. Okay, so I believe it's just through you, Chair. I believe it's just receiving the report. It was just an update, like on how it's going.
So we're going to move to receive that, please. Well, Peter, all in favour? Carried. 7-1, next again, page 28.
Yes. So through you, Chair, I moved to receive this report as well. So this was an update that it's almost split into two parts. The first part is an update from the district councils on some of the operational issues that they're currently facing. That's right. And in terms of the most recent GPS and how it's impacted their current workflows, so there was some good news coming from the GPS. Like for example, there was an increase in roading funding in some ways, but there's also been a lot of requirements put on them. So and limitations, and I wanted to try communicate that to the Regional Transport Committee. And then on the other hand, I also wanted to give an update on the South Island Regional, the Chairs Committee, the meeting that we went to recently, and also the fact that there's quite a lot of high level strategic work going on nationally right now. So things like behind the scenes, things like potentially lining up the GPS with the RLTP period, with the NLTP period, things like that. which will have quite a significant impact behind the scenes, not so much the public, but behind the scenes in the way that the funding structures are run. There's also talk of there's quite a lot of impetus from road controlling authorities across the country to start doing longer term funding projects. So I think it's like, off the top of my head, it's like 95% of projects that are run every year or funding every year is just continuous stuff, basic road maintenance, basic footpath maintenance, but they still have to keep on doing these regular requests to NZTA, and so there's a bit of a push right now from RCAs across the country to say, well, actually, so much of this money that is that we're requesting regularly is just absolute BAU stuff. Why don't we just get it in one big lump or have it approved for a gradual repeating process without having to keep on going through these hoops and stuff like that? So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes that I thought would be quite, at least in the transport world, quite worth noting and updating on.
Yeah, I think one thing that come out for the regional transport thing for me, and I think it's pretty obvious that there's a dwindling pot for NZTA to do a lot of these things, and we're mindful that what we've got, we've really got to find better ways to use our share, because Auckland and that are going to get a lot more of it. It's going to be quite difficult going forward because the pot ain't going to get any bigger, I don't think. We just look at some of the cutbacks and other departments are doing, health or NZTA is no different. It's going to be pretty challenging going forward, but the capability there of NZTA, especially working with partnership with the regional councils, and I think we look at the South Island as Council South Island, if you follow me, because we've got more tick for the kick, with that collective push, because we all seem to be on the same page. Our issues are the same issues Southland Scott, same issues Nelson Tasman, even Christchurch for that matter. It's the hub for all the South Island economy. It's all the structure for ports, international airports, rail. It's pretty important, and we're very vulnerable this side of the Alps to be shut up from that in the event of an incident or an act of God nature. So we too have got to be a bit sharpen our pencil a little bit of how we do things to offset the inevitable, because it's not a matter of when. We all know it's going to happen one day, and every day that goes past, we're one day closer to it happening. That's the big important thing. And the preparation work has begun. It's pretty solid with the emergency management teams we've got in the organisation. But there are other things we can tweak things, because a lot of this, when an event happens, especially for the West Coast, it's going to be largely self-help for quite a while. So we've got to position ourselves, and I hope with that in mind, the powers that be realise that, because we're going to be a province in isolation as far as recovery for quite a while. So yeah, that's one thing, and we've got another meet before the elections with the regional body. But it's a real good vibes at the local regional meetings. Everyone's got to know each other over the years, and we all know what page we're on and the issues. And it's a shared responsibility for all of us to get things right, because we don't want to post-mortem after events and we're looking at things that we got wrong. That's the way I see it.
For you, Dan, just a couple of points on that. So it was ECAN and NZTA were actually doing a South Island vulnerabilities document, and so I fed into that, and also the district councils fed in some operational points as well on different vulnerabilities. So one of the things, for example, that I don't think NZTA was fully aware of was how much our population increases through the summer period versus the winter periods. So but one of the other things is that the district councils and the regional council's been invited to it, is currently doing a joint procurement strategy as well to try to find those efficiencies too. So trying to do more with less effectively.
We've got the new NZTA Transport Performance and Efficiency Plan there. Ben, we've got some comments on that, and a couple of people around the table having a good read. It's a document for the future and the scope of it, and it's about performance and efficiencies, and there's an acknowledgement in it too, which I must acknowledge myself, that it's good to see that there is that focus that the funding issue is the big one from Wellington. It's degraded the systems we may have had in the past that was out there, but I just make a point when I've read through it. You know, I call it deficit maintenance, if you like, deferred maintenance, just increases the workload for the following years. And I think we've got to get the message through to Wellington that in some situations one size doesn't fit all, and the South Island is certainly a little bit different. And Peter and I are meeting some MPs next week, and we'll hopefully have a catch up with and discuss some of these things, because there's nothing like a local focus on it to put the bigger picture. And but it's good to see. I'm pleased to see some of the wording on the strategy document, because it mirrors what we've been thinking and saying for a while. I think I recall Peter brought up the potholes just as a by several years ago when we did it. The NZTA bristled a little bit, but now we've got a $200 million pothole fund or whatever it is. So we were right way back then, and you know, it's just the point that people do notice things, and they bring it to our attention. And we've always had the old adage, the steps in time saves 9, and penny wise pound forward if we don't address things. And that should be front and centre for what we're about, because the roading network, once it gets back so far, it's very hard. It costs a lot more money to bring it back to where it should be. It's we're a dog chasing its tail, and Wellington's going to wake up sooner or later, because all the money can't go to big projects in Auckland, which their transport issues a lot of self-inflicted over the years, because previous mayors, well back to Robbie's days, they could have solved a lot of it, but they deferred, and that's what I call deficit maintenance. You know. But if you want to speak to anything in that report, it would be appreciated, Ian. Give a wider perspective from NZTA's point of view.
I think, thank you for the opportunity. I think the good news with this GPS is that very focus you've talked about on pavement maintenance. That's been something that we've been after. You know, potholes certainly were in the news, but the big gain for, I think, all of us is the fact that we can get into resales and rehabilitations. I think what the efficiency thing does is you're quite right. It signals that, you know, we are in a time of constraint, so we've got to be more efficient at how we use things, whether that's through our contract models or how we use TTM. But I think that the encouraging thing, certainly through the South Island chairs, that I got the flavour in the room, is that we are aware that, you know, there's some big resilience issues in the South Island that have to be sort of mapped out and started to plan for in a forward way. And I think that the opportunity then to start to identify where those are and put some prioritisation around it will be useful for any government going forwards for future GPSs. So I think that, combined with looking at together and individually how we can get the efficiencies, which is what this starts to set up as a bit of a roadmap for that, stands us quite well. But yes, we've got to continue to tell the clear story around that and build the picture on it. And that's the situation that the agency's in, and I'm assuming that the same situation that the councils are in as well.
Any other comments, anyone?
Oh, a couple of comments. I just welcome some of the items in that report. You know, one of the things in there was just that the resurfacing targets going from 9% up to 9% from 5 to 7. You know, we're sweating the asset. You know, and that's what you were talking about, Pete, you know, earlier on there, just that maintenance, and also just one of the concerns in there that TAs had bridge replacements and having having to reduce weight limits in the future. You know, it's a major concern on the coast here, Ian, you know, because we've got, you know, potentially a big increase in industry here with the mineral sands and the lights, you know, happening. I'm pleased to see that Knights Point slip in there as a semi-permanent fix. You know, that route security for our region is so important. We're the only one route going through from the south to the north, and that's reputational damage to the tourist industry. You know, when we have a road outage for some time, they just reschedule the buses and they go, well, this is not, I brought that up at the South Island. So look, really good to see some of that stuff in there, and I support what's happening with NZTA there.
Anyone else? Nothing further? Ian, you happy? Okay, we'll move on to the next item then. Get through the pages. This one fee, our Bailey Bridge issue. Ian heard plenty of this in Christchurch. But I must just say the leader there just formally made the effort to get this on the board again. I appreciate the reasoning and for the Burnham situation, but again, I just emphasise the isolation should the Alpine fault go. And whilst there's the assurance that Bailey Bridges will get here, I think given the difficulty with the Christchurch earthquake, you know, there was 3 days before they got to the eastern suburb civil defence in Christchurch. I think Burnham would have a lot of activity just for issues on the east coast when the Alpine fault goes, let alone worrying about us here on the west coast. And that's a concern, and it's part of the planning thing that I mentioned before. If we have some situated here, not a lot, maybe 2 or 3, it'll just secure that link, say, between Hokitika and Greymouth with the major airport and the hospital, the only hospital, because otherwise we're going to be forwarding bridges, and if bridges go out, and these bridges are not 40 years old, some of them are over 70 years old, you know, and they're of an age where, as I've related in that email, you know, they were built for the Ford V8s and the Commer vans and other things, not the big train rigs we've got today. And it just worries me. 93% of New Zealand's transport and trade is done by road. The coast would be all of that, if not more. We've got the rail for the bulk items, the coal and the milk factory, say. But our economy runs on wheels, and wheels runs on roads and bridges. And if we have one break somewhere, and I'll give Greymouth for example, Ian, State Highway 6, State Highway 3 come out of Greymouth. State Highway 6 going north to Westport, you've got the overhead bridge with the rail line. That's up for replacement, I acknowledge that, because of the failing there. But we go Highway 7 through Clayetta. You've got all the Emoto slips there and the slumpings that occur at Clayetta, where the old school was. And we know about the link south to Hokitika with New River and the several other bridges of that era. Well, if we have an event, Greymouth could effectively be isolated the whole 3 routes, and there'd be no one getting in from anywhere. And so that's a bit of a worry, and we've got to at least have that kit in the box, so to speak, sitting here, that we can at least get one of them open, because it's going to be pretty crucial. The hospital and all those agencies that are here for emergency services, police headquarters in Greymouth, you can only have so many helicopters, and a lot of them are going to be busy too, let alone all focusing on Greymouth. So I just don't want to underscore the importance. And, you know, there's a lot of support for the Bailey Bridge from transport operators, the councils, this council. It's just something where we can plan ahead. We don't want to be planning behind after the event, because they've been here, the Bailey Bridges were here for many years. There's certainly the coasters have got how to build bridges in their bloodstream effectively. We've got civil defence in our bloodstream with all the events we've had over the years. And the know-how is here. I accept your assurance that they'd get here from Burnham, but there is quite a bit of doubt that that would occur in a rapid time. You just do the logistics of getting them from Burnham to Lyttelton, if they can get to Lyttelton, because you don't have to think too hard about what happened with the Christchurch earthquake with the road to Lyttelton and laying the tunnel. So, you know, there's a lot of logistical things there, and there's no better way to address the problem here than if we have those items here, 2 or 3 of them, because we'd be months away from getting anything like that, given the roads will be out for so long.
I totally agree with you, Pete. I've been following this, and the Ministry Works used to store the baby bridges here, didn't they? And that would have been at South Beach. So the argument about because of our climate, we need them, don't we? Because you never know when this bridge is going to get washed away, let alone an earthquake. So there must be places to store them. The argument about them getting rusty. Well, you would have got rusty years ago, but they're probably still the same bridges.
Well, I worked in the Ministry of Works. I wasn't the roading side of it many years ago, the architectural side of it, and I can't remember any Bailey bridges getting painted in situ. Once they're placed, they're placed. We won it for 10 miles there for 25 years.
That's right, yeah.
Only a couple of hundred metres from the sea, and it served its purpose well. You know, they were a bridge designed during the war for a purpose. Robust, ready to go, and they Meccano set together and they're upward.
It can't be hard to find somebody to store them here, surely.
Yeah, the cost of getting them, you know, it's probably a strong case. We could, you know, the powers that be, all the councils together, if there's a reluctance to get some here, it could be a great investment to purchase some ourselves maybe, but we've got to have them here, and that's what we can't stress to NZTA.
But not a bad idea, though.
Ian, I brought it up at South Island Regional, but we've identified a transport operator located inland at Stillwater that will charge those, they will store those free of charge, and they've got heavy transport facilities and HIABs and the like. So I can't stress also, I brought it up recently, you know, in the last bit about route security, and it's just so important. We've only got that one link going from, you know, north to south, you know, Wanaka, and every time one of those routes go out for the minus of things, whether it's just the abutment of a bridge washed out, you know, which has happened on many occasions where it hadn't taken the bridge out, it's washed the abutment out. I look at the Wanganui River Bridge there, got to drop the Bailey Bridge in there quickly, but, you know, sometimes you stop for several weeks, you know, for a minus little thing, and that. So I, you know, can't stress enough. You know, I do understand your problem of where you keep them there, but I think it's so important for the West Coast, and I think we've got a special case here. That's my point. Thank you.
Totally agree.
Absolutely support those comments.
Yeah.
Great.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we might receive the letter and then respond to you formally, and then we can have a discussion off the back of that. As I said at the South Island chairs, I'm not unsympathetic to your desire to have some more resilience on the coast. So let me respond to this formally, and then we can have a discussion. Just a point of correction: the bridge stock that we've got in the South Island is stored in McLean's Island, not the Burnham military camp. They've got, from what I understand, the Army have got one training bridge in Burnham, and the bulk of the stock's in McLean's Island.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks for that. Thanks for that, Ian. We were under the impression they were at Burnham, so yeah.
Thanks,
That's good. Thank you.
Appreciate the comments, Ian. Good it after the letter. I'm happy to move that we receive a report and approve the attached letter be sent to NZTA.
Happy to second that.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Okay, any general business?
Ian's got a few.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Ian.
Update.
Update. You've got the floor.
With your permission, Mr. Chair, I might share my screen and just take you through a presentation of half a dozen or so slides of some key topics.
Yep, thanks.
So let me change my screens.
It came up, Ian. It was there.
Yeah, no, it's just moved to the wrong screen. I'm just trying to get it on the right one. Right.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Right. Okay, maintenance. It's a bit of a picture nationally, but it plays out locally as well. We've had 2,000 kilometres of renewals this summer, which for us is huge. And it's, as I said earlier, it's a good space to be in, to get on top of some of that pavement stuff that we really had stretched quite badly. The surface asphalt stuff that we're using in some locations will give us better temperature variation management as well. It's a similar volume to what we've had in NLTPs in previous years. The big difference for us this time is we're doing a lot more of that rehabilitation, so the pavement building rather than just the resealing on its own. And we're already starting to see some benefits of that in some different parts of the country. We've been lucky that we've had a good season this year, so we've had reasonably good weather throughout the country to deal with that. And we've worked quite hard to sort of minimise the disruption of the works that we've been doing. But you'll see within that, which is kind of tied into that efficiency and effectiveness thing as well, the Desert Road's a really good example of where we deliberately chose the smarter thing to do was just to close the road for a period and just get in and do absolutely everything we needed to do on it and then reopen it rather than try and manage traffic through it. And it's given us a really good outcome and hopefully a much better longer term outcome for the users, although there was obviously a point of pain with that. And we can't do that everywhere, but where we can, we're going to take more opportunities to do those kind of things now. And we're now at the process, obviously, because it's coming into the wetter, colder months, to switch into a different programme. We're still going to be focusing on potholes. So we're still going to have a requirement within there that we respond to those within 24 hours. And in severe weather events, we'll be responding accordingly. So we're fully expecting that, the previous few years where we've had a higher frequency of weather events, we've just got to end up responding into those. So there'll be some prioritisation around how we kind of manage that, just so we try and get through in the best way that we can with that. You're also seeing, and it was alluded to in the efficiency document, that we're changing how we do TTM to a risk-based approach. So we're trying to ensure then that our traffic management is appropriate for the location and the work site rather than just a cookie cutter approach of a standard layout. And the other thing that you'll be aware of in this space is obviously we're in the process at the moment. We've got an RFT out for our new contracting model for the state highways. So we've got another construction season with the same suppliers, and then I think come April next year we'll be into new contracts on those. So just it's a bit of watching space, and we'll endeavour to keep the RTC informed as that kind of rolls out a bit. This next month we've got Road Safety Week happening from the 12th to the 18th of May. The focus is very much on vulnerable road users in particular. And so it's encouraging to see that you'd had somebody come into the RTC previously to talk about vulnerable road users in terms of horses. We've got the last one we had 1,200 organisations signed up to be involved, mostly schools and some early learning centres, but also included some councils and some other safety organisations. So just as an FYI, more than anything, there's a few things. The colour for the Road Safety Week is going to be yellow. So you will see some things like some of the icons, including the Auckland Harbour Bridge, with a bit more yellow on them for the week, just to promote the fact that we are just having a bit of a focus on road safety. Drug driving, predominantly in the past, we've had a very strong focus on speed and alcohol. We realise that drugs are also a significant contributor towards a lot of our crashes, unfortunately. So we've launched a bit of a campaign on drug driving to raise awareness of drug use and try and get people who are either with people or who are taking drugs to be more thoughtful about that before they sort of hop behind a wheel and then drive a vehicle. we've got some stats on it. I mean, unfortunately, drugs is just an issue that we're all having to bear with throughout New Zealand, but they are starting to flag in our crashes, and we're starting to find drugs, certainly in blood tests and other things. So the drugs most frequently found in driving deaths are cannabis and methamphetamine, unfortunately. That's the data that we've got on that. A lot of people don't realise that drug driving is a problem. So we did a bit of a survey on that, and only 11% of people thought that drug driving made the road network unsafe. And many people believe, 46%, that it's unlikely that someone driving while impaired by drugs is likely to get caught. So you'll see that, you know, this government's certainly got a focus on the police doing more roadside drug testing. And part of our sort of complementary thing to that is to do this awareness program that drugs actually is a problem for us on our network. And we've got people who are not going home or ending up in hospital because of it. So it's just a bit of a head up around that, and then there's a link on this, and we'll send a copy of this to the RTC later today, and you can tag into the information we've got there. The other thing that we've done is we've picked up the road safety cameras from the police. So there's a number of new things going on in that space, including some new types of cameras. So we've got some 27 new permanent or static cameras that we're going to put around the network. The bulk of those initially will be average speed or point to point. We haven't used them in New Zealand before. They've been quite effectively used in Australia and in the UK and some other jurisdictions. The advantage of point to point is it looks at a section of route over a length, and it gives tickets or infringements based on the average speed over the length. So it doesn't pick up, you know, if somebody's doing 105 at one point and then travels the rest of the length at 100, or well, it travels the rest of the length at 95. It doesn't pick up the fact they've sped at 105, but it does pick up if they're going faster than the mean speed over the length. And the system's smart enough to pick up that for trucks as well, because trucks are still governed at 90 kilometres per hour. And the benefit of it is it has a really high deaths and serious injury reduction. So a static camera typically has around about a 20% DSI reduction. So people tend to get used to where the static cameras are, slow down coming into them, stay slow for a bit after them, and then speed up again. The advantage of point to points is they work over the length the two cameras exist on. So out of that 27 cameras, we're going to try and do as many point to point cameras as we can around the country.
What sort of, while we're going through it, Ian, and can I ask a question? What sort of distances is that point to point? Is it 1 kilometre or 5 kilometres or so?
So to give you an example, we've got 3 or 4 in the South Island that we're looking at, and I think the distances for those vary between the ones I've certainly been involved with so far have been anything from about 17 kilometres up to 60. Oh, yeah. So the idea being that they've got to meet certain criteria, so they've got to have a reasonably consistent mean speed across them, and they've not got to end up with a whole heap of potential intersections through them, because that gets problematic, or places that people could do shortcuts and other bits and pieces. So you should see more of that towards the end of this year. The other thing that we're doing is we're taking over the mobile cameras from the police. So the police have typically run mobile cameras out of well, essentially a static camera in the back of a vehicle. We're going to be doing that as well, but we're also going to have some trailers. And so the idea really is we'll have point to points, we'll have the fixed statics that you see in various locations around the country, but we'll also now have a combination of vehicles and trailers where we can deploy mobile cameras where it wouldn't be suitable to either put in a fixed or a point-to-point camera. The New Zealand Police will continue to do their enforcement activity with that, and we will continue to work with the district councils in terms of where we do the camera placements to make sure that they're appropriate for the area and we've got the right intervention for them. Because we might think on a paper-based or from a survey they seem to stack up, but we're aware that quite often the district councils have got that local knowledge that gives us insight into whether there's another intervention or something else that we can do in that space that might be useful. So the mobile camera system is going to be run by a provider for us, and we've used a Census NZ Limited. My understanding is a Census have got some contracts in Australia as well, so they're not new on the block with this. And they don't get any money from the cameras. So they're just simply contracted to go out and provide a service. And it's not dependent on the number of infringements the cameras issue or anything. That money is put back into a consolidated fund. Setting of speed limits. I suspect you've all been over this, and it's quite a few things going on. The challenge a little bit is we're responding obviously to the government's requirement that we do some reversals, and we've been through a consultation process for that. And we've had a number in the South Island where I suppose the nearest one to here has been Milford, which has been through the do we need to go through a reversal process for that. And then we've got several in Canterbury. I think there's going to be notification of those coming out within the next week or so as to the decisions that have been made on those. And then the second thing that we're having to do off the back of that is then go through the implications for the schools, because there was a requirement to then look at the school sites. And then the thing that you alluded to earlier on in your meeting, where you started to talk about the requests from council or coming through members of the public or the community, for consideration of other sites that might need to be reviewed for speed limits. So there's a bit of work that we've got to do at the moment in terms of managing the reversals, the school stuff, and then starting to get into this register that we're building around what the communities are desiring around speed limits. So I encourage you, absolutely, the way that you're planning to do that, collate across the councils and then make a submission to us would be useful. The councils also have got a requirement in this space to do to look at their reversals. I think we'd put information out previously that said, look, it's a bit complicated, so by all means get in touch with us if you need some advice. There is money available to assist you if you find you've got to do some reversals with that. So there's a process underway at the moment to see which councils are up and running with that process, how they're going with it, whether they're applying for funding. There is also a process where councils, I understood, can run a consultative process if they've got something that potentially would be required to reverse, to see whether they can consult through it to test whether they still have to do a reversal on that. And I can get you some more information on what another council is doing in that space if you want. And then the other thing just to acknowledge was I know that there was a case before the High Court, the movement case, which sought to block some of the reversals process. I understand now that the High Court's made a decision on that and declined it. So the reversals process that we've got is the process. As always, reach out to us if you want any advice on it. Next thing, we've got some improved driver licensing coming out, and there's a good news story for that within the West Coast. So part of this is we've got some new things coming out with the graduated driver license system. And we also want to prioritise some regions around being able to do community practical testing, and one of those is the West Coast. So we'll look at expanding our current driver testing model on that. And it could involve a bit more with the VTNZ solutions. So there's a bit of a watch out to here, but I think there's a bit of a win for the coast because, and I've got a daughter that works on the coast, and she's been through some of the testing for a vehicle type recently, and I'm fully aware of some of the hoops that communities that are spread out between testing centres have to go through. Bit of an update on Epitaph. So our work in terms of the longer term solution investment case for that continues. So we've been going through a bit of an optioneering process on that to look at what options are available to us in the longer term. We've done a LiDAR survey, which is essentially gives us a really good 3D model of that whole slip site, I suppose, and hillside. We've looked at what the environmental, the consenting issues, including the ecological issues, might be in terms of us doing any work around there, to see whether there's any unique species or any things we've got to consider in terms of watercourses. And we've been engaging with DOC and the Regional Council on the planning matters. So mid-year, we hope to be able to share our position on the recommended option to go forwards. In the meantime, we've been beavering away and doing some work at Epitaph to make that have the resilience we need in the short to medium term, just to carry us until we get the longer term option approved for funding and lined up and constructed. And you'll have seen the scaling work that we've been doing on that drift face above the road, and now the micropile retaining work that we're doing on the headscarp below the road. Franz Josef, so just a bit of heads up, we're not blind to the fact that that needs to go as well. So the three in that area, certainly for me and for the agency, there's always been deal with the issues we've got at HAST, to get a solution into Epitaph, and to work with the regional and district council around Franz Josef. So we're continuing to have discussions with the district council on that, which I think will then involve the regional council and DOC and others as to how do we get to an agreed plan going forwards with that site. And the second last one is around surface water management. Again, as we come into winter, and we've already had a couple of events where we've had some surface water. We've got a focus with our contractors to ensure that we're undertaking our drainage maintenance and our culverts are clear, so that we can get the water off the carriageway as quickly as possible. We still have a wider problem, particularly with the coast, but in some other areas around the country as well, where we can control certainly our drainage within our system, but then we are part of a wider catchment, and it's how that wider catchment functions and operates is still the problem that we have when the drainage system becomes overwhelmed or inundated. So in the meantime, we're managing that by VMS boards being really clear around our communications, and if it's severe enough, to close the road. And we'll continue, I think, to work with the district councils and the regional council on that, because we are keen to sort of plan for longer term solutions in those spaces. And the last one is just a bit of an update on the New River Bridge. We have got a bit of work going on with that, with our structural engineering team, to make some changes to it. So we're comfortable at the moment that the structure is safe for traffic, which is why we haven't posted it or anything. But we definitely do have settlement, which is very obvious from the picture. That's just been caused around the bridge scar, and that's just led to a lack of strength in our bridge pier tips, essentially, because of the scour undermining them. We've got a plan now to sort of remediate that on this bridge, and to restore the bearing strength in that tip. And we hope to have that final design and some proof testing done for that to be completed in early May, ahead of getting on and doing some construction on that. And that is a bit of an update as to what we've gone on at the moment. Happy to take any questions on that.
Any questions?
No.
Peter?
I do, yeah. Thanks, Ian, for that report. That's really good, and I'm really pleased to see the surface water management on the carriageways. That's been needing funding for quite some time. I had the opportunity of taking Minister Mark Mitchell or went with Minister Mark Mitchell down to Franz in one of the flooding events, and there was surface flooding all the way down, and a lot of it's just maintenance of the side drains and the outlets, of the creeks, and that's welcomed, as well as some of the other works you highlighted there. So I just wonder, I had a bit of a question on just some of the NZTA works, and tongue in cheek here. Is there a contractor on the eastern side of the Alps, for the road maintenance? There is, I guess. The reason I'm asking here is, you brought it up earlier on some of the bits and pieces, was the maintenance on the western side compared to the eastern side of the Alps is actually like chalk and cheese. It's like entering a different country. The other councillor, you and I went over to the meeting when you were at the other day, South Island Regional Chairs, and I pointed out we were looking at the marker pegs all along. So I had the opportunity of having to go to Christchurch again on Monday, and I got my wife to drive, and I actually counted the missing marker pegs between Arthur's Pass, Condyke Corner, and the Mount White turn-off, and there was 74 missing there. There was 276 missing between Mount White and Springfield, and another 45 between Springfield to Darfield. So there was 395 missing or damaged marker side. These are the side marker pegs, which are essential, for driving at night. We were missing in that route. On our way back, we counted only one missing from Otera to Kamara Junction, a distance of 65 kilometres compared to the 97 in the previous one I talked to from Condyke Corner to Darfield. So 65 compares. There was only one, and I noticed only 3 bent. But every bridge and guardrail on the West Coast section had a marker peeled and installed on every guardrail or every bridge. But there's massive areas, Porter's Pass, up at the Beeley Bluffs. There's areas up there that have got absolutely no markers and whatever, and I just think the lack of maintenance really needs addressing, and I'd challenge NZTA to have a look at that. On the Beeley Bluffs, the subsidence on the side of the river side where there's no guardrails is really bad, and I just I noticed the maintenance work on the West Coast recently on patching sealed surfaces is like driving over glass, and compared to some of the ones over the hill, it's just substandard. But anyway, I guess I'm sort of pointing out that the West Coast maintenance has been really good, and I thank NZTA for that high level that we've had here. We really are lucky on what we have. There's never enough money to do all the things we want, but I do appreciate the maintenance has been done here recently. Yeah. One of the other things I just wanted to bring up too, as I brought up for years and years and beat the drum, is about areas on especially State Highway 73 and State Highway 6 around the Coast Road, and that's having small areas where camper vans and trucks can pull over. They're not passing lanes or snow vehicle lanes, but they're just areas that people can pull over and allow other traffic to pass. And those people are going through our region to look at the scenic beauty. So they're not doing 100 k's, but most of them are pretty good, and they'll pull over. But there's heaps of areas that are unmaintained on the side of the road, and trucks won't rip under there if they're going to break a spring, or a camper van's not going to pull in if they're going to chuck everything out of their cupboards and bits and pieces. And I've witnessed that every time I travel those routes. I notice that the people are reluctant to pull into areas, and it's a small cost just to maintain that those little pull-in areas, and that is a safety issue because it allows traffic flow, and otherwise you get vehicles going and 10 or 20 vehicles queued up behind them with nowhere for them to pass. So that's something that I just wanted to bring up, So, yeah. Thanks, Ian. Just a couple of points on your presentation.
If I may just respond through you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Yep. Look, really welcome your insight onto the marker pegs and the issues on the other side of Arthur's Pass. And just encourage you, if you do see any defects in the future, by all means, just fire them through to myself or James, and we'll make sure they go back to the contracts. But I'll endeavour to take this away and just get a bit of an update as to what's going on with the marker pegs. So look, I really appreciate that, and yeah, I apologise that they're not in situ, and we'll just get to the bottom of what's going on with that. And in regard to your comment around the pullover area, certainly we'll take that away and have some consideration that you're not the only area that's raising the need for some more of those with the increase in tourism numbers again.
So thanks, Ian. It's been quite noticeable that they've improved on the West Coast, and they've done them. And there was, you know, this has been going on for years, but it's really important as a safety issue, because you see, and I witnessed it coming back from Christchurch on Monday night, you know, the frustration of the slow vehicle, nowhere for them to pull in, and then people making dangerous passing off, you know, moves to overtaking just through sheer frustration, you know, and yeah. So that's it. No, thank you for taking those points, and I'll actually send you a bit of a letter on some of those, just so just to clarify that. That's right, through the chair.
So I just have one issue, Ian. Thanks for your overview there and your slides on the epitaph and the New River. There's one there that I'd like a bit of clarification on it regarding the plan going forward, and that was the avoidable lack of maintenance on the Otira shelter. Road users could see that was going to happen, and you know, for the deferred maintenance again with the build up on top of the shelter, went over the side and the road was closed for several days off and on. You know, the cost to done that in time to prevent disruption would have been a few $1,000s of normal maintenance, but the disruption would have cost road users on the coast to go to Lewis or deferred journeys. It would have amounted to millions of dollars in the end over the period. Truckers going through Lewis instead of Arthurs. I just hope there's a plan going forward that situation again is doesn't happen. It's you know, someone's keeping an eye on the shelter. If there's a build up, it's cleared away, or you put some you know, flat sheet wings on it or something, so the build up can not spill over the side or whatever, because that was really an avoidable one, and you know, there was quite some adverse reputational damage to NZTA over that one, because it was so avoidable, yet it happened. And you know, going forward, we don't want a repeat of that one, surely.
Thank you for your comment on that, Mr. Chair, and I can absolutely confirm that we've got a cyclic programme now to look at clearing that on a regular basis, so we will avoid that reoccurring. So.
Thank you.
Hi, Ian. I noted with interest in your report your reference to Franz Joseph, and you said that you've had some ongoing discussions with Westland District Council. I think you said in your report on that. I wonder if you could give us a little bit more, you or Riley could give us a little bit more information on what the nature of those discussions are.
Well, look, I think through you, Mr. Chair, what we're trying to go is we need to be joined up as to what the solution is, because it's not just a case of we can't select an alignment for the bridge properly, and the new bit of road that will be needed until we're clear on what's happening in terms of the township. So there's a bit of a discussion, I think, to go on with both the council and DOC and others to go, are we all on the same page as to what the plan is? And then we can get something planned for and programmed potentially. And so that's where we're at the moment, is to try and get agreement as to what the wider plan for that area is.
That's the plan.
Is there anything?
No, I'm unaware of any conversations that have gone on, but I would assume that the regional council should be involved in those.
So what I've noted here is that, you know, we've issued our Waiho River strategy, which was well publicised and shared with all entities, you know, which does talk about the south side, and the master planning, you know, is with Westland District Council. So, but you know, of course,
We should be at the table.
we should be at the table, but we're not the lead on that. That is Westland, and that's been acknowledged by the Mayor. Yeah, so I look forward to any ongoing discussions on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Ian, just wanted to thank NZTA for the great work you've done online and on social media around the Epitaph slip. The comms around that have been fantastic in keeping everyone, especially in South Westland, up to date with what's going on. So that's been great. Thank you.
Yeah, acknowledge Ian, certainly. Nothing else, Ian?
I just got one more item of general business, if I could, through the chair. I just like to thank, I've been on this committee for 18 years, now it's coming up, and this will be my last probably meeting on a local committee here, and it's been a great relationship with NZTA, and I just welcome any of the councillors to really be encouraged in the dialogue with NZTA on this. It's, there's no real figures today on budgets or that, which there usually is at this meeting, setting the annual budgets and plans, but it has been a great forum. It's been a great opportunity to work in with NZTA to show the local problems. So for councillors going forward, I think it's hugely important. The highlights for me have been on this have been the replacement of the Turmacow Bridge, the road rail bridge. I remember when I first got on, I said, "Where's that?" And the NZTA said, "Oh, that's not even on the list. It's miles out." I said, "Well, let's get it on the list." And we got on the list, and it was lucky that by getting on the list, the geotechnical stuff happened, the drilling got done, the planning got done, and then luckily John Key through that advancement project brought it forward by 2 years. But that's the type of thing. And the other highlight for me was the Arthur's Pass Minga Bluff. And even though it's in the other region, it's so important to the West Coast community, for so many people travelling back and forwards for medical and just generally going to Christchurch. And the other thing was getting through passing opportunities, and we managed to push and get through a lot of passing opportunities throughout not only the Coast Road but through State Highway 73 and through the Bulla Gorge and the like. So that's been the highlights. Disappointments for me, I guess, is probably the surface finish on the Arthur's Pass to Minga Bluff. We brought that up for many times. In its construction, we were advised that was a sacrificial surface, but it wasn't, and it's quite a rough finish compared to other surfaces around. So that was one of the disappointments. And the second disappointment for me is the pinch point corrections, which we've brought up, and we identified this committee and put them. There's still quite bad pinch points. This is where large trucks have to cross the centre line to navigate the road, and that's a safety issue, and they are still there on Mount Hercules and to a less extent the Coast Road. So they yep. So it is around so we do have heavy vehicles that do have to unfortunately cross the centre line, and I fear the day they're going to meet a bus or something coming the other way. So they're the disappointments for me, and I hope going forward that they'll be picked up. So I just thank Ian for the involvement we've had with NZTA over those years.
Yeah, I'd like to echo those comments too, especially with the Manina perception improvements. I think even though it was outside of our turf, we as a local transport committee, we actually gave we had a fuel funding on our side of the Alps. We gave them several $1 million to progress it too, because it was in our interest to secure the link, improve it. So yeah, I'd like to thank Peter for the years he's got, and maybe I could leave it in your hands, Ian, that we get a commemorative marker peg or something with Peter's acknowledgement.
For his service. I'll leave it in your hands.
Thank you. Yeah.
No other business from anyone? All good. Well, thanks for your attendance, Ian, and your input. Much appreciated. And we look forward in the future to having that dialogue about those couple of issues we talked about. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Declare the meeting closed.
Great. It's a good meeting.
Thank you.
You stand again, Ollie?